Hi everybody, Colin here with Team Align, and this morning we're going to go over the basic setup procedure for the TRX 250 Bind and Fly DFC MRS unit. This is exactly how it comes out of the box. Canopies on, blades are installed, model's built. All you have to do is bind it to your FHSS Futaba compatible transmitter or your DSM compatible Spectrum or JR transmitter. Also included with the package is a CD-ROM drive that you're going to pop into your desktop or laptop. This has the same electronic PDF copy of the paper manual that you would find in the 700, 600, 450, 500 kits. Obviously, for size reasons, we're using a CD to ship it in a smaller box. It's obviously more economic for everybody to have something shipped in a smaller box, so those cost savings are passed on to you. You'll also find a bind plug, which is going to be necessary to set up the MRS unit, a little flathead screwdriver, which is how you're going to set your gain and your cyclic rate, along with some Velcro straps and some sticky back Velcro to fasten your battery to the helicopter. Also, aside from just a helicopter, you're going to need your own transmitter, like we just went over, a battery charger. So we're going to move forward. We'll pop the CD-ROM drive in the computer. I'll go over the setup with you through the series of lights that are on the bottom of this MRS unit, and then we'll go flying. Here's the home screen that will come up on your computer once you install the CD into the CD-ROM drive. You can either watch instructional videos online, or you can click the PDF digital copy of what the paper manual would be that's included with a 700, 600, 500, or 450 kit. It's got all the exact same information in it that all the larger models have. It's got the exploded views, the illustrated parts catalog we'll call it, that has everything broken down for you, so if you ever do crash it or for whatever reason have to take the helicopter apart and get it back together, all of the information is available here to you very conveniently on the CD. We don't need to deal with any of this right now for the initial setup and binding procedure. All you have to do is scroll down to find the part of the manual that's going to coincide with the type of transmitter that you have. I'm using a Futaba 18MZ, so we're going to follow the Futaba binding procedure down here. The setup procedure is going to be identical between the Spectrum and Futaba transmitters once the model's bound. The first thing we need to do before anything is create a new model in our transmitter. You want to make sure that the model type has an H1 swash plate selection. That's a pure function, mechanically mixed type swash plate. All of the electronic mixing is going to be taken care of with the MRS unit. So you need to make sure that that's selected to the right type, otherwise you're going to run into some issues with the servos not working correctly. The second thing you need to do is go into the transmission type and make sure you've got FHSS selected and not a fast system. The MRS is only going to work with an FHSS type transmission. Those are the two main things you need to do. Everything else you can leave factory. Your sub-trim should be 0. We're going to do all that through the setup of the MRS unit, which we're going to move on to right now. Before we put power to the model, you want to unplug the speed control from the motor. That's going to ensure that no matter what you do, the motor's never going to have power and never going to rotate the main rotor blades. I've taken the rotor blades off this to do the initial setup just because I find it's a little bit easier to work with. Without the blades on, it's smaller and easier to move around. You can leave them on if you choose, but just make sure that you have the speed control unplugged from the motor. The initial binding procedure requires you to have your transmitter turned on before you supply power to the MRS flybarless unit. To power up the flybarless unit, all you have to do is plug the battery into your speed control and wait for this bind LED, located right here, to start flashing green. That's letting you know that the MRS unit is recognizing a signal that's being sent from your transmitter. To actually bind the transmitter and the receiver together, all you have to do is hold down on the set button until it begins flashing red. Continue to hold it down until it goes solid green, at which point you can release the button, and it should stay a solid green, letting you know that the bind has been successful between the MRS unit and your transmitter. Once it's gone green, we can move forward with the actual setup of the flybarless unit. I've already bound this transmitter to the model, so once I plug it in, the bind light's going to be red, and once it recognizes the signal and is bound and we're ready to fly, you'll notice the swash plate will do a slight up and down movement, and then the bind light will go green. Now we're ready to move forward. The MRS unit has 6 parameters that we have to adjust before we can go flying. When you get into the setup menu, you have to complete all 6 parameters before you power the helicopter off. Otherwise, the MRS unit will not memorize what you just did. So even if you only want to adjust one setting, still go through and do all 6 before you release power to the helicopter. Otherwise, once again, it won't remember what's going on. So to enter the setup mode, first we have to turn on the transmitter. Then we'll plug in the helicopter, let the MRS unit initialize. Once the unit's initialized, you'll see the swash plate jump up and down a few times, and the bind LED will go solid green on the MRS unit. Throughout the duration of our cyclic setup, we need to have the collective stick at exactly half. Right now we're going to set up the neutral points for all of our servos. To enter the setup mode, once everything's turned on and bound, you have this green LED. All you have to do is push the set button down once. You'll notice the status LED flashing once. That's indicating that you're into the aileron servo neutral point setting. Here's our aileron servo, and all we want to do is adjust it so that the servo is 90 degrees to the linkage and that it's still parallel to the swash plate, which it should be if it's 90 degrees to the link. To set the servo center point, all you have to do is move your rudder stick left or right. Once you've got the servo centered, you can come down here and hit the set button again. Now you can see it's flashing 2 times. This double flash means that you're now setting up the elevator servo neutral points. We want to do the exact same thing with our elevator servo as we just did with the aileron servo. So simply move the tail rotor stick left or right to set the center position for that servo. Once you're happy with the servo centering, simply press the set button one more time. You'll notice the LED is flashing green 3 times in a row. That indicates that you're now going to set up the pitch servo. Exact same thing that we've just done twice before. Simply move the rudder stick until you've got the servo centered to where you're happy with it, and then press the set LED once more. The status LED will now be flashing green 4 times in a row, while the bind LED is a solid green. This is letting you know that it's time to set up your gyro compensation direction. When you move the tail rotor of the helicopter to the right and the nose to the left quickly, the compensation direction should move the tail rotor servo forward, pulling the linkage rod closer to the nose of the helicopter. If that's not the case, simply bring the unit upside down again so the LEDs are visible. Move your rudder stick to left or right until the LED turns red, which will let you know that you've changed the compensation direction of the gyro. This 250 was working correctly with the LED green, so we're going to go back to that setting and then move on to the tail rotor endpoints. Simply hit the button one more time. You'll see the status LED flashing green 5 times. That means that it's time to adjust the left hand endpoint of your tail rotor. You want to set the endpoint by moving your rudder stick to left or right, ensuring that you've got max throw, but not so much that it's binding. So there's maximum throw. Come down here to the MRS unit and press your set button to memorize that setting. Now you're moved on to the left hand, the right hand I should say, setting for your tail rotor servo. Same thing, you're going to move your rudder stick or tail rotor stick until you get maximum throw without binding. Once you've got that, press the button once more to complete the setup. Both the bind and the status LED will go green, confirming that you're done the initial setup. Now we're ready to go flying. Flight tuning of the MRS unit on the 250 is about as simple as it gets. You've got 2 simple adjustments, the first one being your roll rate, which is your overall cyclic rate, and the second one being your gain. The roll or cyclic rate comes set pretty moderate from the factory, and I suggest flying the model at first like that just so you can get a feel for it and get used to how the helicopter flies. The second setting is your gain setting, which you'll want to adjust finally after you set your roll rate or cyclic rate to exactly where you want. I did end up turning mine up a fair bit. It's easy to slowly go bit by bit until you find the roll rate that you're happy with, and then adjust the gain setting after that. What the gain setting does is sets the gyro sensitivity to the movements on the roll and pitch axis of the helicopter. So if you turn the gain up too high, you'll eventually start to notice an oscillation, particularly in the elevator command when you're stopping and starting maneuvers. What I suggest doing is slowly turn the gain up until you hit that oscillation and then go back just a very little bit. that's going to give you the optimal gain setting for your cyclic rate. I did find that the cyclic rate, once I got it to where I wanted, was a little bit too fast for me off center. So I used the expo setting in my Futaba radio to about -20 so I could get the linear feel that I was looking for. Again, that's going to be all personal preference to the user, and the setup is entirely up to you. I've got my pitch curve set at ±11 and my throttle curve on my 3D flight mode 100% across to the maximum head speed I possibly can. That's all I've got for you on this little T-Rex 250 bind and fly. It's an awesome little helicopter, tons of fun. The performance from the MRS unit is fantastic. It's super convenient for both Futaba and Spectrum users that are looking for a high performance bind to fly helicopter. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.